one family, living together. We are one, living together. We are one, living together. We are one, living together. Sanano, Illinois, Comunidad Universidad. Somos una familia, viviendo juntos. Somos uno, viviendo juntos. Somos uno, viviendo juntos. Somos uno, viviendo juntos. We are one. Welcome to Talk Time Podcast. This your host, Dan Outland. We are back with an interesting topic today regarding racial equity, racial healing, racial harmony. So before I introduce the host, I want to talk about this podcast. It's a powerful conversation dedicated to racial healing, unity, and meaningful dialogue. I am the founder and executive director of Chicago Cultural Arts Alliance. I'm also a retired Chicago police lieutenant and community advocate. Tonight, we come to, this morning, when we come together, not just to talk, but to listen, to reflect, and to heal. This podcast is supported through Healing Illinois, our grantor, an initiative focused on advancing racial equity, building bridges across communities, and creating a safe space to courageous conversations, right? And I say the word courageous conversations because when I was putting this out, a lot of people scared to talk about this, and I don't know why. So, but we're gonna talk about all that later too, right? It ain't gonna affect your job because you're gonna talk about how you want people to love each other. I don't get it. Yeah. I don't get it. So Brian Williams, my co-host, introduce yourself, B.
Well, how you doing, family? My name is Brian Williams. I am a co-host of Talk Time, a longtime member of the Alliance, Divine Purpose Ministries, Youth of Performing Arts. I am excited to be here because I believe that this conversation is necessary. It's needed, especially with us trying to get to understand each other and get back to family, get back to community, so I'm believing that this conversation is going to be helpful, and hopefully those of you that are out there watching, you can chime in and let's get it cracking.
And we got our other host, Nathan Hicks.
What's up, Nathan? Off cameras, guys. I'm off camera today, but it's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Can't wait till we dive into these questions that are coming in from you guys. Looking forward to it.
All right. So one more time, the purpose of the podcast is simple but powerful: to create space for racial healing. Healing Illinois is about confronting hard truths, building understanding, and creating pathways towards unity. All right, I'm gonna say that again: creating pathways towards unity. We believe healing begins with honest dialogue. Today's conversation is not about division. It's not about politics. It's about discovery, empathy, and hope. And we want our audience to be a part of this journey. We are going live right now, y'all. This is the Alliance first time going live, y'all. So y'all pray for us, right? You know what I'm saying? So we're working it out, but it's gonna be our first, right? But before we dive in with our questions, I want to introduce a special guest.
Yes.
This is Ariana Owens. So Ari, I'm so glad that this is a wonderful young lady that, I reached out to. She reached back to me and said, I'm more than willing, Dan, to come on the show and help out. So Ari, introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you all and everyone on live. I am a second semester PhD student studying educational policy.
Yeah.
What class is here?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Made it through the first semester. Keep pushing. I also am a research assistant at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I work for the Center for Urban Education Leadership, And before I started my PhD program, I was working in higher education and diversity, equity, and inclusion spaces. And then most recently, I was an associate dean. And I also spent some time serving on the school board in DeKalb, Illinois. So very excited to be here. Super passionate about racial healing in general. So I am looking forward to our conversation as well.
All right. So y'all heard it, right? Y'all heard it.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Y'all heard it. So this is going to be some good conversation. So we're going to jump right into question number 1. Now, the people that's live, please feel free to chime in, type your questions. We're going to respond to your questions towards the end, or maybe even in between. Depends on if it's a question that we think is worthy to jump in the middle of the conversation. The question 1: how do we heal from the things that are happening to our fellow Americans? So I know that's kind of a vague question, and you'd be like, "What you mean by what's happening?" If you look at the news, things happen both good and bad. So this is just open dialogue. So, Ari, you could jump in.
Sure. I like that the question is vague though, because I think that shows different ways people can take it.
Amen.
And so as far as, things that are happening and how do we heal from it, I think we have to name what's really happening, wherever your brain goes. And when I think about injustice, it's just important that we actually are talking about what's happening. And it's something I think about, for example, with ICE, people will call it ICE activity. No, ICE is kidnapping people.
Mm-hmm.
We need to call things as they are, because, how can we heal if we're not even being honest about what's happening? And, I know at the top you're like, no one's going to lose their job. We're talking about love and stuff. I think there is a lot of fear and nervousness about talking about what's really happening. And so I think to heal, we have to acknowledge it first. I think that's a powerful, important step. We can't talk around it,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and like she mentioned about people being fearful to talk because of your employer. I overstand. I served on the job for 31 years and I got a nice pension, so I didn't want to mess with my pension. So I get it. But at the same time, these conversations have to be held, because, regardless of who's in the White House, it doesn't matter. What matters is that myself and Ari and Brian and Nate and Harry, we all need to coexist, right? In a peaceful manner.
I wanted to follow up too. And it's hard. I know I talk about it like easily, but it's a hard thing to do because what you're talking about, your livelihood and stuff, there are risks, but I'm a believer that, sometimes there is a time and a place. And if you feel like, well, I need this to pay my rent, I think about like people who are fellow like grad students, like, well, I would say more, but my professor and my assistantship, there are spaces where you can be honest,
Exactly.
And there's sometimes you don't have to be like at the front of the protest with the microphone, but there's things you can do within communities and behind the scenes. And that matters just as much, I think.
It does.
We have a question that just came through. Not to interrupt you guys, but it's kind of a pertinent question. Charvel Ballard wants to know, how do some people talk comfortable who is not comfortable about talking?
Wow.
That is such a good question. And I love that question because I think that's something I struggled with for a long time. Believe it or not, I am an introvert. So being here on the podcast live, I had to calm my nerves this morning. And I think something that's helped me, like a strategy, is just to remember what you can personally contribute and what's your truth. You may be comfortable or nervous to talk about something, but if you're speaking your truth and that's real and honest to you, no one can disagree with that. And so I'd say, just honor yourself, honor your truth, and do whatever you need to do. Practice with your friends before you go out and give a speech or agree to do something, volunteer. Go to someone who is trusted to, how does this sound? Like, you don't have to do it alone. So if you're not comfortable, you can practice just like you would practice any other skill.
That makes sense.
And I think with that, you said something real that was real, with your friends. Find you a village.
Yes, absolutely.
Find you a village of people that you're comfortable being honest with, people that won't judge your opinion or judge your thoughts on things like this, and this is what this is about. Start having that conversation, start having the dialogue, start having even the disagreements. Those things are healthy because they bring us to you can agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
But it's the fact of at least being, I don't want to say strong enough, but I do want to say strong enough, but strong enough to open up to have that. If there's something that is in your heart, you want to open that up. And having individuals around you with the collective mindset of, yeah, we want to do that too. That will only help you when you do go out to a platform and you have to speak. You know, the more we do it, I think it's like Toastmasters. You know, Toastmasters, they have you, you know, to go up and speak. They teach you how to speak in front of a crowd. They give you different topics. Those things I think that we should start to do. Within the community, within our little groups, start having little conversations, and those conversations can lead to something else. So I think it starts, you know, get a village that you can have those conversations with.
Yeah, that's real talk. That's great advice. You know, a village makes a big difference with building confidence in various situations. So I like this one. It's tailored towards the question. It said, what responsibility do individuals have versus institutions? And that ties into mental health as well. So say it again. What responsibility do individuals have versus institutions? And Pamela, y'all could jump in.
That's a good one.
That's a very good question. Wow. Because you're of course, there's an individual responsibility of voicing those things that trouble you, especially when we're discussing racial healing, those things that that you really want to get out. As far as institutions, they have policies and procedures that they have to go by. So it's a little different because now you're talking about something that's structured. You yourself, you have that that affordability to go out and speak your truth, to go out and say how you feel, you know, within your confines, within the right place, the right time, and things like that. Institutions, in order for things like that to happen, there has to be a structural change where individuals are not. My thing is, let's get rid of the whistleblower thing and let people speak freely about the things that are troubling them, things that are actually going on, things that can actually help even build those institutions. So I think that's a different, when you're talking about individual responsibility as opposed to a structural responsibility.
Right. Awesome.
I agree. And I also think there's a responsibility, you know, with individuals, as you said, and with institutions. And something I would caution people is to not overly rely on institutions.
Man.
I feel like when I'm not that old, I'm 32, but when I was even younger, I was like, oh, you know, everything's going to be okay because there's rules and there's policy. But sometimes those rules and those policies are oppressive. And, you know, I think I was socialized to believe, you know, the world is a good place. Good things are going to happen. Like, you know, the bad guys are never going to win. But sometimes that's not reality. And so I would say, I think we should expect institutions to do their jobs to protect people, to do better, but also know that we have our personal autonomy. And when they fail us, because they will at some point, whether big or small, then we have power still to organize and do things and advocate for new policies and change things. And, you know, a lot of times we can be a part of oppressive systems and still be able to create change, you know. And I know some people feel like, you know, that's not real. We have to burn all the system now. Some of them we do, but also we have a lot of that individual power that if we are strategic with it and organized with it, we can make a lot of the changes we want to see. So I think it's definitely both.
Okay, awesome. So call in and chime in, y'all, and ask us some good questions, y'all. Ask us some hot questions. Make it out of here. So the second question: in today's climate, there are racial injustices. I'm gonna say that again for those who may not believe it. In today's climate, there are racial injustices. How do you find a common ground? Anybody can jump in on the panel. Good. I know.
Although I'm off site.
You're gonna get on.
Yeah.
I would say is what we're doing now.
Hmm.
You have to be willing to have a dialogue. You have to be willing to come together
Oh yeah.
and have a conversation. And it piggybacks a little bit back on when you're talking about the institutions. You can't rely on institutions to make changes for you. The change comes about through the people.
Yeah.
And so the people have to bring about that change. So again, is what Talk Time is doing now, is having these conversations and not being afraid to have the true and real conversations. Some of these conversations, yes, they're going to hurt. Some of these conversations are going to hit on things that you didn't even know you had inside yourself.
Mm.
But it's a good thing to do.
Mhm.
So that's my 2 cents, is saying, hey, let's continue to have these conversations and have them more.
I agree. I think, the topic of disagreement has come up a couple times this morning, and I think you should lean into that and expect there will be disagreement sometimes, but if we have the same end goal, which is for people to feel loved and safe and supported, let's lead with that. And I even think about within some of my own villages. So I feel like a good example, I'm Black biracial. So my dad is Black and I have a white mother and stepmother. And I've had to have some awkward conversations with my own mothers,
Yeah.
like they were hard and they're uncomfortable. And it's like, I think everyone has groups and communities where they can do that. And I sometimes think there's a false idea that, for us to find common ground, we have to agree on everything.
No.
We have to have the same end goal, but there's many ways to that, because, having to talk to my own mothers about, have you thought about this? And, and there's been a lot of tears and hurt feelings.
Right.
And I even think about, groups I belong to. I think about some of my friends who are part of the LGBTQ plus community in ways that I have been unintentionally harmful, and they educate me, but it's like, we have to talk to know those things.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people, they get caught up in wanting to be right or wrong or good or bad. And it's like, as people, we have the capacity to be all those things. And we have to stop looking at it like, I'm not going to talk because I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I don't know everything.
Exactly.
And we got to talk regardless.
Yeah.
You have to open it up. And that's another thing I like about Talk Time and us, is because we're 3 individual Black men, but we don't always agree at 100%
Right.
on everything, so we're not robots. So each individual brings their own ideas to the table, and we collectively talk about those different things and different ideas. But at the end, we respect each other.
Right.
And I think in the end, when we have these conversations and these hard conversations, we have to bring it back to say, yes, you have your idea, and I may not necessarily always agree with what you're saying, but I respect you and I respect where it's coming from.
Absolutely.
So if that's an excellent point. So if we disagree on some things, and like Ari said, sometimes it may be hurtful and harmful to somebody, how do you recover from that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what people are so scared.
That's because they don't know if they're going to recover.
I think a lot of times we have to take our ego out of it,
Ooh,
You know?
yeah. I like that answer.
Kind of like I was speaking on, for everybody is so worried about being right and wrong, and you have to say, you know what, I'm sorry. A good sorry goes a long way. Just that acknowledgement, and I feel like a way to move forward is, I'm sorry. And sometimes we would talk about this in when I was doing programming in higher education a lot, about intent versus impact. And just letting someone know my intent was never to make you feel small or to silence you, but I recognize the impact was different. And for that, I'm sorry. And so I think that acknowledgement goes a long way. And then just having some real conversations about repair. Like, I'm going to try not to say this or do this anymore. And what would support look like for you? Asking questions. I think curiosity can go a long way, because, this is awkward. There's been a tension. Well, let's acknowledge it. And how can we be better?
Yeah.
And I just think societally, we're so afraid of any kind of conflict, and all conflict isn't bad.
No,
but
no.
that fear stops us from being like, well, I wouldn't even know how it looks. Well, you got to try.
Yeah.
But conflicts allows you to grow too.
Exactly.
And I think another aspect of that is, I think a lot of people have conversation just to be right,
Oh yeah.
as opposed to listening.
Yes.
Some people
Wow.
just come in with that dogged attitude that I'm right, and they're not listening to what the others are saying. And I think that's what has hindered the conversations that we've had, that people have had prior, because everyone on every side is right. No one wants to put their pride or put their ego aside to say, you know what, let me listen, because maybe what they're saying is something that I can relate to,
Right.
and it'll help me to change the dynamic of my of my thinking. And I think that's really big. Everybody, you can be right in an aspect, but then in another aspect of your conversation, you could be wrong. So listen. And I think if we do more of that, listening, people have some good ideas. They may not talk a lot, but when they do, they have some very interesting, very intriguing, very truthful information to disseminate to people. So it's like, in Healing, Illinois, which is what we're talking about. I think if we as individuals and then we as collectively, we start to do that, now the responsibility individually is out there.
Yeah.
Now we can affect institutions because we might not agree on everything, but at the core, at the foundation, we have something to build on. Now we can start to make change.
I agree.
And and it's funny that people are sensitive about topics like this. And if you look at the Senate, they can't agree on nothing. So that's proof right there. People can disagree because our country leaders disagree with each other all the time.
Yeah.
To the point that they do a shutdown, which means that they're not agreeing. So there you have it right there. So if they're not scared to hate on each other, then and they are leaders,
Right.
our representatives.
Right.
Yeah, but that's how. But again, you in a lot of instances you're going to agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, what are the foundational interests that we have? What are the foundational concerns that we have? If we can just strip all of that ego thing is so big, strip that down. We are trying to heal.
Yes.
This is a foundationally hurt country.
Yes, it is.
So we're trying to heal not years, not just decades, but centuries
Literally.
of hurt, of dissent, of wrong. And again, with this Healing Illinois and what we're doing today, this is how you start. We start February 28th, 2026, having this dialogue, and now we can move forward. We can take this and take it out to different people. But again, we have to understand that this is something that this is part of America. Hurt is part of America.
Yeah.
And it's a part of history.
It's a part of history. So we're trying to literally change
History. Yeah.
change the direction or the trajectory of where America is going. So it's going to take work and for people to start being open and honest about how they feel.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. It reminds me of something one of my professors talks about. I'm in a class right now called Healthy Development in the Context of Trauma. And she always talks, of course, how and she works with, she used to be a clinician, a therapist with young kids. And she talks about how most of the world, we think trauma is like one event, like you were in a horrible car accident, or maybe you have PTSD from military, and those are very real. But also trauma is coming from descendants of enslaved folks. Trauma is, if your family has a history of your people experiencing genocide, like those are all things, like you said, that are history, built in. And so, when it comes to healing, we're not just healing on interpersonal levels, but it's so much deeper. We're healing on so many levels.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't even acknowledge the trauma of that history. Oh, that was so long ago. It wasn't that long ago.
It really wasn't.
I remember, I'm thinking about like the civil rights movement and how we always see pictures of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King in black and white. And that was an intentional strategy to make us think it was longer ago than it was by putting the pictures in black and white.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow.
I always say that, Ari. That wasn't that long ago.
It was not that long ago.
No.
I agree.
So,
It's deep.
we have to start getting to first of all, start acknowledging the truth
Right.
of what happened. Then once we acknowledge it, okay, we have to accept them.
Right.
They happen. These things happen. These traumas happen. Okay, now, since we've acknowledged them and we've accepted them, what do we do from here? Where do we go from there? Because who wants to carry hurt all of their life?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We want to get to some point where we can heal. And I'm saying that someone is on the live asking questions. So
yes.
I wanna-
We want to bring in a couple of these questions.
Okay.
Again, we have another question from Shar. Her question is, how do you heal from, I'm sorry, that was the previous question. Okay, I'm gonna give you that question. How do you heal from that? Do you stop talking to that person just to heal, or because now it seems one-sided?
Like a person who's disagreeing with you?
Yes.
How do you heal from
How
that?
do you heal from that? Well, as we spoke earlier, how you went back and forth and you felt as though they said something that hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're at this point. How do you heal from it?
Mm.
Or you just accept what they're saying in their apology,
hmm
and then you just like, okay.
That's a
But then
good
it becomes
question.
one-sided.
Yeah. That is hard.
Yeah.
That is hard. And I'm a person, I feel like personally and professionally, I used to be really passionate about like changing people's hearts and minds. And that is important. And I believe that. But sometimes people do not want to be changed. They're very comfortable in their
Mhm.
belief, and that belief may not align with me. And so I think it's hard. I personally, I've had to get comfortable with a little bit of disappointment. And it really depends on the nature of the relationship too. This is a coworker who, I wasn't that big of a fan of anyway. I probably won't remember it in 2 days from now.
Right.
But like let's say this is someone I thought we're more aligned and now our values are shifting. I think just giving yourself that space and time to feel disappointed. And just to really feel your feelings. I have a lot of friends who are therapists, and that's something they tell me all the time. And especially if you are a thinker, a worker, we can kind of just go through the next thing. And what's my next task? But actually taking the time to think like, oh, that made me sad. I wanted this person to be aligned with me on this thing, and they're
Mhm.
not. And there's not a use in trying anymore because they're grown, just like I'm grown, and they've made their decision. So I say giving yourself time to feel however you feel about that. And also, like you were speaking on your village, chat with someone who is more like-minded.
Mhm.
I find that helps you be encouraged and not in a gossipy way. I'm not saying go be messy, but something that you feel like you were missing from that connection that exists somewhere else.
Go get some new friends.
Also, and it doesn't have to be any beef. You can still love them and be rooted in things, but
Yeah.
sometimes you outgrow people, and
You do.
that's something true.
That's scripture too.
You
You
have
really do.
And you don't have to hate them, but
No,
we're growing in different ways.
Ecclesiastes 3.
it's like the trees on branches. They all.
Right.
Yeah, it's still a tree.
But in the end, we're still a tree.
Yeah.
But you gotta know when to stop beating a dead horse.
Yes. Mhm.
And let me add this though. When we talk about like-minded doesn't mean that you all agree on everything.
True.
You agree on the principle.
Right.
And now we can disagree, but now we can at least have the conversation of the principle and have that dialect. If they don't want to let go of their convictions and you're trying to convince them, you have to know when to say when
Mhm.
and move on, because what that's going to do is that's going to create more trauma to you
Yep.
Yeah.
And drain you.
than it is to them, because they're going to go on about their everyday life,
Yeah.
Not caring.
And
Not good at that.
not even remember that it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're hurt. So you got to know, like the guys have said, let go and,
Yeah.
and hold on to your conviction and find a village of people that understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
and you can have that dialogue and they can respect what you're saying.
Exactly.
So there's a level of accountability that our community has. Everybody doesn't believe in accountability. I'll tell you that right now. But how does that look? I mean, how does accountability look when it comes down to healing? Healing each other, healing your community. What accountability? What are some examples of accountability that you all think?
That's a good question.
I would say, for my understanding, a part of it is being aware and being able to accept what someone is telling me that they may not like or I may have done. Being open to it and saying, okay, I didn't realize that I did that, but can you forgive me? That was not my intent. So I'm taking accountable of what I said and what I did. And now, not only I'm taking accountable for me, but I'm acknowledging you and I'm acknowledging your feelings on it.
Yeah.
Although my feelings may not be the same, but I'm still acknowledging your feelings and I'm offering my apology. That to me, that's accepting the responsibility of what I had.
That's
put in
excellent.
it.
That's excellent.
That's big. And I feel like being able to do that without being defensive too. Because sometimes people are like, well, I didn't mean it like that. And it's like, well, no, I don't know because that hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being able to do that with humility.
Expression.
We have a really good question here. Is it wrong to not want to relive that after taking time? But is that healing because you removing by force? Let go, but it still hurts.
Removing by force.
Right. If I'm gonna summarize it, they're saying, is it wrong to relive those feelings after taking time away from the feeling?
Oh.
But is that healing because you are removing it by force?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a two-part question.
Yeah.
too.
I wish my therapist friends were here. I always say I'm a fake therapist. I don't have those credentials. My background is in education, but taking some therapy-related classes and being close to folks, to me, that sounds like just a part of the grieving process.
Yeah.
And, grieving is something we think about in the context of death, of course, but you can also grieve relationships and people. And I think it's stinging later doesn't mean you're not healing. It just shows you probably had some deep feelings about that connection or that person. And I think that's okay. Now, if you're really like dwelling and stuck in it,
Yeah.
that might be a little different. And you might
Mhm.
call in your community more, go to therapy. I'm a big proponent of therapy, obviously. But I think just the memory of it or reliving it, we're saying let it go, but it's hard to let it go.
It is. But I think it's doable. And I'm learning this because my wife holds a grief conference twice a year.
Oh, awesome.
It's awesome too, y'all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
It's awesome, and it actually has helped me to understand the process of grief.
Mm.
That grief is not just death of a physical death. It can be your best friend left you, your husband or wife left you, you lost your house, you lost different things can cause you to grieve. But in that, the healing, and I circle back to it, village. It's village, because the more people that you have around you that are supporting you to heal helps you gravitate. Yes, you're going to have those moments,
Mhm. Sure. You're only human.
just like, Char with that individual that you let go and you keep reliving that thing in your head. You have to get around individuals that are promoting your health,
Mhm.
promoting the other side of that. And I think, I'm a firm believer that when one person leaves you, God is going to bring somebody else into your fold that's going to help you to heal. If that's what you want. A lot of people don't want to heal.
Mhm.
A lot of people like being in that place because they're comfortable
Yeah.
with that. So they'll just stay right there. But you have to be around people and you have to get a mindset that I don't want to be here. And eventually this is going to pass.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree.
Makes sense.
This question 3 for the panel and for the community. How do you feel about today's healing climate in America? Say it again. How do you feel about today's healing climate in America? We kind of touched upon this a little bit,
Yeah.
but
So I would actually like to ask a
All right.
request. As a biracial
Mhm.
young lady,
Mhm.
how do you feel
Mhm.
that America has been towards you and people like you?
Yeah.
And well, let me just
That's a good question. I could cut me off if I start talking too much. I would say my experiences have really varied. I definitely have encountered people who, oh, you're not really Black, because you have white moms. And then I have people that's like, well, if your daddy Black, you. And then I've had people who like, they don't even know that I'm Black. They think I'm Puerto Rican. I get that a lot. And I would say it really depends. And it depends. People have been very accepting. People have also been, I think they might have unintentionally othered me. I remember one time we were doing a group activity and we were separating by race. It was relevant. It wasn't like any segregation kind of thing, but we were separating. And there was like a group for the Black folks, white folks, Latino folks. And the facilitator was like, oh, well, there's not a group for, all right, we'd have a mixed group. And I was like, well, I was going to go to the Black group. Like, you know what I mean? So like she kind of singled me out. And I've learned that I can perceive myself one way, and that can be different from how others perceive me, and to not take that personal. And I also realized, while I am a Black woman, I have privilege. I have lighter skin. I don't experience colorism, like people with darker skin do. And that's important, and that's a privilege. At the same time, no one perceives me as a white woman when I walk in any space, so I have also experienced oppression in many things. And so I just try to be conscious in, I'm trying to remember the question you asked me, how people treat me. I think it depends. It depends. I think it depends on the context you meet me in as well. If you're meeting me, I'm in a position of power, at work, you're one of my students, you may look at me a different way. If I'm in a very pro-Black space and I'm the lightest person there, sometimes people will look at me funny. And that hasn't been my whole experience, but that's definitely happened. I remember one time when I was a freshman at Northern Illinois undergrad, did not have as much confidence. Huskies on the line. I was at an event. It was for BMI Black Male Initiative, great group. And I was there with my boyfriend at the time, who was a Black man. And one of his friends came up to me and was like, "Oh, it's so nice to see you out supporting the Black community." And I was I thought I was the Black. And so, right, like little remarks like that. And it's like, I don't know if he was, he didn't mean anything by it, but like that stuck with me. And I'm like, oh, I'm not enough. And so I've just learned I have to have a strong sense of self, and even within my own family, I have a very multicultural family as well. So it's funny because when I got to college, I'm like, everybody doesn't have a whole bunch of I realized how monoracial a lot more of the world is. But even, with my white family members making little microaggressions, they don't even mean anything by it. They just don't know better. And so I think I've always had a big sense of empathy. And now I'll bring it back to a larger question. Sometimes people just don't know better.
Yeah.
And not always. Sometimes they know and they're loud and wrong. But I think how people view me is just based on how they were socialized to think about race and people. And because I've lived a life where I have seen two sides, one of those sides being white, and seeing how privilege works in real time, like the difference from some of my family members to others, I'm able to have more empathy. I'm glad it didn't turn me bitter.
That's good. But that actually, what you said actually, for Dan's question, how do you feel about today's healing climate in America? And I think your answer was, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you said, you have to have a strong sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
In today's climate, you have to have a strong sense of who you are. And because nobody's going to do it. We already know the division, everything that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But if you lose yourself in that, then now you're susceptible to their ideologies.
And they'll tell you who you are.
Yeah, they're going to tell you who you are. So it's like, and I guess with the question, how do you personally feel about that?
Yeah. About which part? You said really good things.
How do you feel about where we are in attempting to heal the climate in America? Or let's say to heal the climate, let's start with Illinois.
Sure.
Because that's what we're
I feel hopeful. And I feel a little nervous too, though. I feel like I'm a person, I try to get more comfortable in the middle, like holding two truths at once, because, well, how can you be nervous if you're optimistic? Because I'm a human.
Right.
I feel hopeful because conversations like these, and I feel like younger generations, they're more willing to be open and talk about healing and mental health, which is big. There's always jokes about what's the generation under the millennials? Gen Z?
That's under. You got the wrong generation.
I was about to say that. You got the wrong generation.
Whoever's under me, they always make jokes about, this generation, they're not going to stay in a toxic work environment. They're going to leave. They're going to get a new job. They're going to get a new friend group. And I am inspired by that. But also, it makes me a little nervous. I think about people getting burnt out or feeling a lot of heavy weight. Well, if I'm the only person in my circle talking about mental health and people aren't ready to hear it. And I think there's a lot of oppression occurring, and I think societally it's easy to get stuck in one thing, but all of our oppression is connected, like sexism, racism, everything we're seeing happening, it's connected.
Yes.
And so I think I have a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to give you one coherent one. I feel hopeful because people are speaking up more. They're feeling more comfortable, but also speaking up does sometimes put folks in danger, whether that's of, we're talking about a job, we're talking about their lives, we're talking about many things because as optimistic as I feel about people being willing to talk and organize and get involved, there also are still people who don't want that, make America great again. They want to go back to some of the origins of these oppressive systems. And so I know that can get draining and exhausting, but to your point, that's why you need your village, you need your community, because, so you can take a day off, you can take a break and have people to support you and love on you and help you. And I think I also feel optimistic. I want to speak more into the positive side.
Yeah.
But I feel optimistic because everyone has a role in healing, and I think that's something that younger generations are helping us realize too. And while we've had incredible civil rights leaders and, still ones living today, even back then, everyone couldn't be outside at the protests. There were people at home, cooking lunches. There's people talking on the phone. There's people doing healing work. And I think what I've seen just from working with college students too, is people are more open to accept that. I don't have to be the most eloquent person, but there's a role for me in this movement to heal and make things better. Whether I'm going to go get a degree and be the first person in my family to share this knowledge, or I'm going to start this group, or, I think people are aware that they have things to contribute and that those things are valuable. So that gives me hope.
As we're getting towards the end of the podcast, that's I was going to ask, everybody, even people that's tuned in, what are some personal hopes for America? What are personal hopes for unity in America? And you kind of tapped upon it a little bit. You tapped around it.
Something I will ask, since you did ask me specifically about the biracial experience. I have two younger sisters. They're 14 and 16, and I had asked them maybe a couple years ago, because this is something that I struggle with. People always say, "What are you?" About my race, and when they would ask me, I'm like, "What am I? What does that even mean?" And so I had asked my sisters, because I'm very conscious of just making sure they know who they are and they have more positive experiences. Not that my whole experience was negative, but I asked them, I'm like, "How do y'all respond when people ask, 'What are you?'" And they're like, "People don't ask us that." And that made my heart happy. And I was like, "Well, how would you answer it?" And one of my sisters was like, "I would just say I'm an American." And so in a way, I'm happy that her experience is in a world, she does live in a racialized world, but not to the extent where people are comfortable asking those things.
Do you feel that each generation, it gets a little bit better?
A little bit.
Because in
it
my
brings
period,
new issues.
Exactly. Coming up as a teenager and a biracial child, we'll say, "What are you, black? Are you
Right.
white? Which one are you?"
Right.
That was my generation.
Mhm.
And I'm finding that your generation was a little bit, they didn't ask as much.
Yes.
And now your sister's generations is kind of going even smaller.
Yes. Mhm.
So we're going in the right direction.
Yes.
Because you can't get away from biracial children.
No, you can't.
There's
Because the
only
world,
more.
it doesn't just talk about the
Where did it
nation.
start? Where did it start?
Let's
There
talk
we go.
about foundation.
There we go.
Because the reality is the same people that are against other races, they're your cousins.
Literally. It's true.
They talk about bloodline. Well, great granddaddy is my great granddaddy too. So this is something that this is foundational.
Yes.
Again, but a certain group doesn't. They just don't want that side of the family.
Right.
They want it because this is the dominant side.
Exactly.
So they
Understood. But now it's to a point where interracial relationships and interracial marriages are so common
Yeah.
that now you're looking 10, 20 years down the line. Now I understand the fear from being there. The fear is
I'm not there anymore.
Yeah, I'm not. And that is a fact.
Yeah.
That's not even an opinion. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That you're going to have more black and brown and interracial children running the country.
And that's the fear.
So how do you handle it? I guess you handle it by doing what you do now. Make sure you keep your foot on their necks.
But
But
before you go, Dan, before we 100% close out, we have one question. I thought it was a very important question, and this viewer wants to know: Any recommendations for people who are not sure how to be vulnerable to ask for the help from their village?
That's a good
If
one.
you can
These
give
have been
them
great questions.
answer for that.
How to ask for help in those villages.
And how to be vulnerable to come to that point to ask.
Showing signs of vulnerability because you're being open, basically. That's what they're asking.
I think leading with how you feel and taking pressure off of yourself about like the perceived reaction, you know, like, well, what if, because I feel like a lot of reasons it's hard for us to be vulnerable is because we're afraid of how they're going to respond. But I think if you just really take it from a feelings perspective, like, you know, and whatever that need is, I'm feeling, you know, kind of broke right. That might be a bad example because a lot of us are really kind of broke right now, but you know, I could really use $20 till Friday. And you're like, I shouldn't ask that. Like, just say your need.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think oftentimes you'll be surprised by how eager people are to support and show up for you. And even when you're not asking for money, again, that probably wasn't the best example, but I think about, you know, I was recently having a conversation with someone and they wanted to bring something up to another friend group and they were nervous. And I was like, I think you would be surprised by how people show up for you. I think sometimes another fear of vulnerability is because we get so in our heads or what are they going to think about me or this or that. But remember, just like you are a caring, good person, other people have that for you too. And so I think just leading with your feelings and being open. You have nothing to lose. What do you have to lose, you know?
Right.
And you also have to be open enough not to let your vulnerability stifle you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You got to allow that vulnerability with some people that you trust. You can't give your heart and give your emotions. You can't give your vulnerability to everyone.
Absolutely.
You have to find that village or find that person that you can open up to. And I think to what you said was so important. I think that there are more people that are willing to listen to you in your vulnerability. I think what we have is that wall.
Yes.
We have that wall of defense up so much that we're expecting them to say something contrary to what we're feeling or what we're thinking, you know, and I think that's something that we've just built up. That it's a defensive mechanism that we've built up. When the reality is that there are people that are really there to listen to you and probably in the same position as you.
I was gonna say might be going through some of the same stuff or have gone through. They have some wisdom for you even.
Never know.
And so you can bounce off of each other. Now that's where healing begins.
Yes.
You know, you have someone that's like-minded, probably not, you don't agree the same, but you have that foundation. Hey, we can talk to you. At least I can talk to you.
Right.
I don't like what you're saying, but
at least I know if I come to you,
you're going to hear me.
That space to be heard means everything.
And that healing Illinois, healing America, healing Chicago, healing, it begins with taking down that wall. Got to take down that wall so that we can start to have these conversations. Just think if we were all just defensive and we wouldn't have this right now. There wouldn't be a podcast about healing Illinois because we would have our own defensive devices hindering us from having this type of conversation. So I think this is something that y'all this needs to go around. You know, have conversations around the table.
And you know, that's a good way to end, as you come close into your ending, is one of the questions that came through. How do churches and local organizations promote racial harmony? How do we get everybody to come into that?
A concert.
Music does bring everybody together. And food.
Music heals the soul.
Yes, it does.
I think but actually, honestly, that's a good question. How do they start? You have to start by not understand your people. Know your people. Get to understand where they are. Everyone, even if you're in a church, everybody in your church isn't in the same place. So you can't talk these thous and thuses and you can't talk that to everyone. You have to be able to meet them where they're at. Meet them where they are. And then you can start having conversations. Now they'll trust you because you oh, they talk just like I do.
Right.
You had issues too?
Mhm.
Oh, well, now I can talk to you.
Because I thought they were up there, you know.
Yeah.
I perceived them to being
Right.
up there.
All they gotta do is hang out with me after church. They'll be like, oh, baby.
I don't know if
Church is cool.
Well, I didn't know church could be like this.
Church is great.
Y'all got weekday stuff?
Exactly.
These church folks fun.
I think that is, and healing anything, healing Illinois, healing anything, it starts with that conversation and that vulnerability to open up. You still had another question I want you to ask, though.
Yeah, what, then I was gonna close out. Well, we still can. But
So I need more healing.
what gives you hope? Is that the one or which one?
Before we get to that, and we'll close out.
Okay, go ahead.
Can healing exist without justice?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a good question.
I saw that. I was gonna tap into that because the first thing I thought about was what she mentioned earlier is with our friends with ICE. You talk about justice, baby. They taking justice in their hand in the wrong. A whole different type of
Justice
So-
has a new meaning to
justice
it.
has
Right.
no meaning with it. So that's why I didn't talk about it. Go ahead, guys.
I think that's what this is, okay, because we're talking about, we have to talk about the justice system. We have to talk about why people in vast areas of organizations and government and institutions that they don't feel free to talk about or to even think that they can feel
Mhm.
a certain way about that. But can healing exist without justice? Without
I like that. And we talked about this earlier. And like Ari, she can expound upon it. We talked about people I put it when I was trying to get a panel together, a lot of people was kind of standoffish on this whole thing, right? And maybe they was worried about justice in the wrong way.
Yeah.
The employer,
Or repercussions.
Or repercussions.
They say the wrong thing.
they say the wrong
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, and it ties into that is why is people fearful about? Why are they fearing justice? Why do they?
That's such a
About
good
this
question.
topic.
who wants to be locked up?
Right.
Well, justice is not just
But see, that's a good point. And this,
law enforcement.
what we're talking about earlier is justice can mean different things to
Exactly.
different people.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, and so it depends on when we're talking about justice and healing, what is your definition, you
Yeah.
know? And to me, I think, when it comes to can we have one without the other, I want them to coexist, because I know this is a more sad example, but I think about people who have like lost loved ones to some kind of violence. And it's like, well, justice would be getting my family member back,
Mhm.
but it might make me feel better. It might help my healing process if the person who, is responsible for that does something like that, and so it depends.
Or put hands on them.
Right. And there's
There's
street
also
justice,
that.
there's legal justice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even when we talk about legality, like it frustrates me sometimes when I'll be having conversations and people are like, well, were they following the law? And it's like, the law, y'all know slavery used to be legal. Like what?
Right.
And not to say everybody go out and be lawless, but kind of like we were saying earlier, like people are really taking justice and law into, so it's tricky. And I would like to believe, justice is the goal. But I would like to believe that even if we cannot experience the collective healing we deserve, which we're getting closer, so I'm not saying we can't have it, but I would like to think we can have pockets of, interpersonal and communal healing.
I just don't think personally that we've ever healed
Right.
from the justice of the foundation of this country and everything that has happened in
Mhm.
between. I don't think that we've been allowed the opportunity, and I'm not just talking about Black people, I'm talking about brown people,
Mhm.
even your low class Caucasians, you're talking about, different class, because I believe that America is classism. I don't
Absolutely.
believe
It's more
racism.
classism than
It's
Literally.
classism.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I believe that, individuals that have been in those situations, I don't think that we've been given the opportunity to heal because we have to keep moving.
And get over it and move
Right,
on. That was
right.
so long ago.
Yeah,
When it wasn't.
So it comes to the point where justice isn't even a thought anymore because the government is going to do what the government is going to do. Now we're in a place where, okay, we know what they're going to do. So now we have to do what we have to do to heal
Mhm.
because we can't rely on the justice
Yep.
system. We can't rely on true justice.
Mhm.
The only real justice is what you give to yourself.
Mhm.
It's that healing from that grief of whatever situation has happened,
Mhm.
slavery, ICE, the different things that are going on in the country, and we don't have to talk about that, but we know what that is. So again, it starts with individual. You have to be so secure in you and in your village and your purpose that, and know your source, and know who your source is, that you know that whatever happens there will not affect you. You know what I'm saying? You have to, because if you don't, again, you become exactly what they tell you should be.
And they will tell you wrong.
Every time.
Nate, can you do me a favor and look up on your phone the definition of the word healing? True definition.
Something I want to say, just to encourage people too, like you speaking on needing to like have that strong foundation. Maybe you're a person who has never felt like you had a strong foundation, and it's just one thing after another. It's like never too late to discover yourself, you know, and even discover new parts of yourself, because you could know who you are to the core. Something shakes you and it's like, well, who am I now?
That's true.
You know, and not that you have to totally reinvent yourself, but like it is okay to rediscover and explore. There's no shame in that. Like that's honorable, I think.
What they say, like every 5 to 10 years, your whole mindset changes.
Right.
It's your lifetime anyway. So,
You know, when some people wear a mask so long, it's hard for them to to take that mask off and be who they really are.
Right.
Because once they take it off, they don't even recognize who they are. You know, so
All right. The definition of
and read.
and read it. I'm not going to summarize it. I'm going to read it exactly word for word. The true meaning of healing is a profound journey toward wholeness, going beyond just curing symptoms to integrate and restore the body, mind, and spirit for balance and deeper well-being.
Wow. That's deep. And that summarized everything that we have talked about, right? And the fact that I want to applaud our sponsor, Healing Illinois. The fact that the reason I wanted that read was because this grant is called Healing Illinois. So healing, that means it's a process, right? It's not healed Illinois.
Right.
We don't need it. Right?
It's a journey.
It's a journey. And it's a journey. And I want to applaud them for being, having a bold grant like this to say, hey guys, we're healing. Illinois is in a process of healing, and it's currently taking place. So it's not past tense, it's a process.
It's a process.
And so I just want to applaud them again and thank them for giving the Chicago Cultural Arts Alliance the grant to do. And we have more projects coming up as well too. As you follow our page, you all will see that as well too. And our last question is, what gives you hope? What gives you hope?
This.
True open dialogue.
Yeah.
It gives me hope.
Okay.
Dialogue, then action.
Yeah.
Give me an example of action.
After we have this conversation, that we're taking this conversation and being willing to have it with someone else.
Yeah.
That it goes outside of this internal fraternity and it goes outside to other people, so that they can see that this conversation is okay. Now let's take it to other people to say, hey, we're brothers. We're all in this struggle together. We're you hurt, I hurt. You bleed, I bleed, and we both bleed the same color. You know what I'm saying? So, but I guess this is personal, because I really want to see our brothers and sisters just understand that we're not against each other. We're okay. I want as much for you as you want for you. So if we can take this dialogue and then take action, let's take this thing out to different communities and let them know, hey, I don't care if it's Irish, Greek, whatever it is, just hey, we've had enough.
And like you're saying, Brian, you can touch on this better than I am, because I'm not military. But you can look at it from the stance that we're all Americans.
Yeah.
We're all one. We may have different backgrounds. We may come of different colors, but in the end, we're all one.
Yeah.
We're all one nation. We're all Americans.
And like I said before, we're actually more one nation than most people think, because if you go back to ancestry.com, I will guarantee you, man.
We all related.
I've been getting so many hits lately.
Bro.
Man, I'm related to a whole lot of people. I'm a whole lot of denominations and cultures.
But that's the reality of it, though.
No,
Literally, Americans are related in some way or another, and by some bloodline or something. But hey, it's like, let it go. Let it
Yeah.
go. Let's just, you know,
Yeah.
let's heal, my brother. and
Let's
sister.
heal. Let's heal.
Let's be okay.
And as we come to a close, I want to thank the panel again. This was some amazing conversation.
This was great.
Mrs. Owens, thank
Yeah,
you
thank
so
you,
much.
thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was a great time.
Thank you so much.
Hey.
There it is.
And our co-host Brian Williams, an amazing job. Co-host Nathan Hicks,
Yes,
and
sir.
took questions, and our producer, Mr. Harry Bell, who's
Harry.
offline.
Harry Bell.
Yeah, he's offline. He's off. He's offline. It's a great team.
All right, it sounds like you're right.
So I look forward to more conversations similar to this, to talk about Talk Time Podcast. I want Ms. Ari to come back again. I want her.
Oh, yeah.
I want
I'd
her
love to come back.
I want her to sit in this seat and be the host for whatever she wants to talk
Yeah.
about.
I love it. I
Whatever
love
she
that.
wants to
Absolutely.
talk about. But by Talk Time, our podcast, we talk about entertainment, we talk about sports. We got Mr. Brandon Davis, who's going to be coming on now, helping us out with the sports segment. Now, Brandon said he wants to do that.
Thank God.
Yeah, so, and my nephew, Miguel Bailey. They're going to be the two
Okay.
guys that's going to lead the way, for the sports talk. And then we talk, of course, we all involved with music. Fine arts is what we do. And by me being former law enforcement, I still talk a lot about, violence and safety in the community, and as well as Brian Williams, former military. So we got that. We got some stuff going on now. I ain't gonna talk about it, but sun jumped off this morning. But
Yeah.
but Lord Jesus, pray for us, pray for our country. But yeah, chime in on Chicago Culture Performing Arts Media Alliance /Talk Time. We got some great things coming up. The podcast, we're going to have some live entertainment to represent our fine arts department. Miss Jamie Clay, she performed for us for Christmas. And actually, we're having a gala at my big 60th birthday party.
Yeah, the big 60.
Oh, let me push rewind. Happy birthday, Nathan Hicks.
That's
my
right.
brother.
Happy
Oh,
birthday,
guys.
man.
Thank you, thank you.
It's currently his birthday.
Yeah. 83.
Yes.
I'm glad we was able to bless him today so he can buy him a steak dinner tonight. But check out our page. We got a wonderful gala coming up April 18th. Divine Purpose Youth Performing Arts Center. We have some amazing stuff going on with my wife, Victoria Allen. She couldn't be here. She's at another event. But stay tuned. We are doing some outstanding things in the community. And the goal is, what gives me hope is the fact that I look forward to bringing up the younger generation.
Yes.
To take on some of these things that we're doing with the not-for-profit world, with the law enforcement world, with the military, and Lord knows in that doggone political era,
Yeah.
we need so much help there. So I can't say I have hope what's going on with the Senate, but I'm praying. I'm gonna say that I'm praying, because the fact that they can't get it right, it just bothers me a lot, right? So, and that's one of my pet peeves. I don't believe in shutdowns, because shutdowns hurt people that work every day. They can't feed themselves because you two parties can't get it together. So that's another story.
That's another topic.
That's another stuff for another day. But stay tuned. We're doing some great things. We got some great pop-ups coming up. If you want to be on this podcast, hit us up on our social media.
Community leaders.
Come on. Let's
Aldermen that are running in the area.
Yeah.
Aldermen.
Let's get it right. And I look forward to you guys. Thank you again for coming on Talk Time Podcast. Thank you once again, Hill in Illinois. You guys are amazing at what you do.
Amazing.
And we got some more great things coming up. Love you all. Peace in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Living together.
Original song by Brian Williams, y'all.
Living together. We are one. Living together. We are one. Living together. Sanando, Illinois, Comunidad, Universidad, somos una familia, viviendo juntos, somos uno, viviendo
Viviendo, somos uno. Viviendo, somos uno. Viviendo, we are one.